Good morning, guys. Happy Sunday. I thought I'd make a little bit of a longer video this morning. It is, already October the 29th. And if you guys did any partying last night, I hope you were safe and I hope you are well rested and hydrated this morning. I've done a little research recently, and I ran across a page on Instagram, and it might turn out backwards. It's ADHD.yoga. But anyway, she's got some incredible content. And one thing she was talking about that really kind of hit home with me today is something that I think is important to bring up, and that's emotional dysregulation and the difference between emotions and dysregulation. Now, you ADHDers out there, and a lot of times, even with different overlapping conditions, so to speak, the ability to regulate your emotions is not as easy as it would be in a neurotypical person. And so we're often taught, and this is kind of what I was getting at when reading some of her content, we're taught to not, and you'll have to excuse me, I don't know why every time it rains it gets wet. It's like allergies get crazy. It should be the opposite, right? Anyway, emotions. Okay, emotions over dysregulation, right? Big difference. Because we're often taught that we shouldn't talk or engage when we're emotional. But when we're emotional, that's when we should talk and engage with our issues and our problems, because that's when we can solve them. Now, when we're dysregulated, we don't have the what I would consider the capacity for mindful thinking, or the capacity necessarily to make those decisions. So emotional, we can kind of balance, and we can kind of like work on this a resolution, so to speak. But when we're dysregulated, we're literally, our nervous system's all to hell, and our body's all to hell, and our brain's all to hell. So we gotta hit that pause button, so to speak, roll it back, and understand that we are just having some emotional regulation issues. And I go through this really pretty often. And just with from ADHDaware.org.uk, emotional dysregulation, being a core trait of ADHD, comes from the same brain and nervous system changes to features like impulse control, executive function, and working memory. Okay, but yes, and with that lack of impulse control, when we're working on dysregulation, oftentimes it's easy to say, I'm gonna throw the towel in, or I'm gonna show my ass and do something I wish I hadn't. And that's often been my experience with it. I am looking at some, I don't always agree with everything, and please do your own research, and I'm by no means an expert. I tell you my thoughts on it, and I tell you my feelings on ADHD and ASD, just my diagnosis and things that I'm familiar with in my own life. This is just a few things, and this is from beyondbooksmart.com. Emotional dysregulation and how it can impact your life. Okay, difficulty in the relationships, especially with someone who doesn't understand neurodivergence and how a person is gonna react emotionally or dysregulated. Okay, see, we use those words interchangeable, but they're not always interchangeable. But you get the idea. So if there's a misunderstanding and we're dysregulated, oftentimes we're going to act out of a lot more impulse or spontaneity than we would, say, if we were just emotional. Because, again, we're talking the difference between emotional and dysregulated. And feel free to go ahead and add to anything that I'm saying that you think is wrong or not correct, because trust me, I don't claim to be 100% right. Difficulty in the workplace, huge problem I have right now, which causes a lot of emotional problems with me, which in turn can lead to a state of dysregulation, and sometimes in the same day. Daily activities, obviously we can kind of take that for what we already know. Difficulty with self-esteem, physical and mental health. All of this is important, but I would say we're going to look at symptoms or signs that you're emotionally dysregulated. Managing anger, okay? That's something I started having a problem with, especially when I was having a sudden letdown off of Adderall. My emotions would spike. I became internally dysregulated to the point where I was completely irrational. Mood swings, which is the next one, rapid mood swings. Overreactions to minor events, that's a big one of mine, okay? And I tend to analyze a lot, so I'm gonna look into things a lot more than they should, which turns into prying at people over their own emotional state, which, in turn, it's just this cycle, okay? A hard time calming down. Now, I don't know if anybody's like me, but I ruminate as an ADHDer. If I'm upset about something, whether it's my fault, their fault, it doesn't matter. If it's resolved, it's resolved, but I'm gonna ruminate on that same issue obsessively, almost, until I feel almost from an obsessive compulsive level, until my brain says, hey, this is resolved enough where you don't have to ruminate on it anymore, and it's just like turning off a switch. Terrible, but it's just what it is. So we overreact, we have difficulty calming down, impulsive behavior. Sometimes it can be not good things that we do. Impulsive decisions based on that dopamine high, that fix we're looking for, that dopamining that we do as when we're in that dysregulation state, and even worse, self-harm thoughts. Let's not let it ever get to that level, please. Maintaining relationships, we kind of touched on that. Academic and work settings, we've touched on that. All things that are very difficult when it comes to regulating your emotions, or dysregulation. But let's talk quickly. Well, I have a little bit of time. I think we had 10 minutes on TikTok here, but strategies to improve emotional regulation. Mindful practices. Now, when the weather's nice, I like to sit outside. I like to meditate. I like to find a spiritual teacher. There's tons of them out there. I'm not really gonna give you any examples because it's purely going to be based on my opinion. So practicing mindfulness, spirituality, these are all helpful. Executive function coaching, somebody that can help you, even having somebody that is familiar with ADHD and the conditions and regulating emotion. There's a process that we go through, co-regulation. And that's when you're with somebody that's safe and that you trust and that you can just sit and be with those emotions with that person. And a lot of times you'll find that you sort of balance each other out. So your energies are going to sort of connect and you're going to regulate one another. Obviously medications, daily routine, exercise. We already talked about coaching, but sleep is a huge one. If I don't get enough sleep, or if I get too much sleep, it can really throw off an entire day. Self-care. Make sure you're showering. Sometimes we just get so engaged in what we're doing. Acknowledge your feelings, right? Positive self-talk. Hit that pause button. Take a step back. Fidget toys, huge, okay? Because I'm a big stimmer when I'm anxious or something. I'm oftentimes in the store doing things with my hands or behind my back or in my pocket. So if you got something you can tinker with, that's a huge way to be able to. But the biggest thing is knowing the difference between emotions and dysregulation, how do they differ, and when it's okay to talk. It's normally okay to talk, but be mindful about what you're saying when you're dysregulated, and talk and make sure you express your feelings when you're emotional.